One of the reasons that I started to put this talk together is that due to COVID and some changes in health of members of my family, I've been spending a lot more time in my own garden and only getting out to in the wild, you might say, on special occasions lately. And I've started to take pictures of things that I hadn't considered before. And I suddenly realized that I was getting quite a collection and that some of these were very, very worthy of my attention and perhaps yours as well. So what I'm going to do tonight is to show you 10 pictures without comment, and then we're going to go back and revisit each one. So here's the first one, which you've been looking at. So I'll go to the second one. And the third one. And the fourth. And the fifth. So let's revisit each of these, and I will talk about them, and then you can talk with me later if you'd like. So let's go to the first. The scientific name of this is Argiope aurantia. But if you said to a spider specialist, well, what do I call it for every day? They would simply say garden spider. If you saw this, you would be so impressed because this female is up to 1.5 inches long. And she was found in my raspberry patch when visitors were coming through. They were either awestruck or horrified by her. So I thought it would be fun for us to take a look at her. I'm going to show you some other pictures, and then we'll speak about this a little bit better. There's an egg sac, 2 egg sacs actually. There is the male, the smaller one. And then another picture of that. I think that's me on my last one. Okay, so let's go back and take a little bit better look at her, okay? I saw her in my raspberries in August. She had a very, very beautiful web. That's usually the time when you get to see her. She's an orb weaving spider. She makes a fairly circular web. And most spiders, like her, have 2 claws. And if you look carefully on the front of her feet, they're very small, but they are there. They have 3 if they make very complex webs. Now the females have the top side of their abdomen is black. If you look underneath, you'll see the black goes all the way to the other side. And I actually was able to do that, but I was not able to take a good picture of it. And they have very symmetric patches of yellow. You cannot miss this spider. She has reddish brown legs, and she's actually found throughout the continental United States and Canada. Now, her diet is based on venom. And this venom is actually harmless to human beings. Although I'll tell you, if you saw one of these, I don't think you would mess around with this spider at all because she's so large and you would be so awestruck, you probably wouldn't get any venom in your body anyway. But she does use her venom to mobilize flies and any other insect which she deems valuable, such as my honeybees, I am sorry to say, but I let her live anyway. Her web has zigzags in it, and if you take a moment to take a look at this web, it might look kind of random, but it really isn't. Those zigzags are of real formation, and there are people out there, I learned, that have actually studied them. This pattern is called an estibularitum, and it's believed that this pattern alerts birds because when the birds get near this web, apparently their sight is such that they keep away from it so they don't get entangled into it. The female often will take the web apart, chew it up, and make a brand new web in the evening for the next morning. Now, when the male wishes to mate with her, it reminds me of a violinist or a guitarist. He actually takes his front claws and he plucks on the webbing to get her attention. After mating, the female lays those egg sacs, which I showed you, and I'll show them to you again, okay? And the offspring actually will hatch out in the autumn. Sometimes, depending on the autumn weather, and nobody knows quite how they sense this, they don't come out and they stay in those egg sacs until spring. Very often the egg sacs don't make it until spring because wasps will parasitize them. That's why the world is not overrun with this particular spider. She lives approximately a year, and then she will suddenly die, usually right around the time of the first hard frost. Sometimes, if she's in a sheltered place, she doesn't die, and some of them have been known to live for 2 or 3 years. I don't know where my female is right now. I don't know if she overwintered. This is true in many species. After the male mates, he dies, and no, she does not devour him. But they're fascinating to see. I'll show you the pictures again. The egg cases, male versus female. She's actually about twice as big as the male, sometimes even up to 3 times. Just to give you contrast, it's much, much easier to recognize the female than it is the male. So we will leave her for now. These, I couldn't believe when I saw them. So I did collect some, and I looked at them under my binocular microscope. They're true bugs. As a matter of fact, if you look, you'll be able to see the stages in their life cycle. They're called a blue shield bug. True bug meaning that they have this triangular formation behind the head. They have mouth parts which are made for piercing, and they have usually from 3 to 5 nymphal stages, which you can see if you look around this. When I first saw them, I thought that somebody had dropped some jewelry because of the very, very bright blue. They do overwinter as adults. And one of their whoops, we don't want that. One of the identifiers for this particular type of true bug are their antennae, which are relatively straight. In many species, they are curved. This one looks a little curved to me, but by and large, they're straight. They're not common, although I did read somewhere that they are common in the northeastern United States up into Canada. one day, Christy knows about this because I sent you this picture. Do you remember, Chrissy? One day, I was working in my garden and I decided to rinse off my house in the back, clean the windows. That's the lazy way of doing it. And what I did was I saw some green up on the side of the house, and I thought it was a leaf that was caught. So I washed it down, and this creature went plop right on my back porch. And this is kind of intriguing because, of course, the moment you look at it, you know it's a tree frog. But I was not familiar with it, although I probably should have been. I was not. I attempted to capture it just so I could study it. I grabbed a jar very quickly from my home, put it over it, but when I went to slide something underneath, it did get away, but I did manage to get several pictures of it. This is actually the eastern gray tree frog, and pictures do not give you an idea of size. It was about 2 inches long, and I would say about 1.5 inches wide. And I'd like you to pay attention, if you would, to the design, if you will, that is on the back side of it. It's actually called Dryphophytes versicolor, and it's arboreal. It's native to the eastern United States and to southeastern Canada. And it is known because it can camouflage. It can go from gray to green. Well, when it was on the side of my house, it was on something blue. So it did the best job it could, and it assumed its green coloration. And the legs have a dark band pattern, which does not show up very well. Underneath the yellow to orange, so-called, like under the arms. The female has a white throat, and it doesn't call, but the male can. And the female is larger than the male. And if you look at the skin, it looks kind of lumpy, bumpy. So it's nocturnal normally. And I saw one later the same week on a branch on a linden tree in the garden, which I thought was kind of thrilling. They reproduce in April, and they don't need to go to a body of water. If there is a crevice in a tree where water collects, they're actually able to spend their entire life there, lay eggs in that crevice, and have the young develop there. Now, I have not witnessed that, but my secret hope is that that's what they did in my gardens. Several days later, I saw a tree frog in virtually the same area, but it was on the soil in one of my gardens, and it was brown. And it's my secret hope was that it was the same one as this. They do produce a toxin in their skin, and it is, how can I put this? You can touch it, you can pick it up, but it is said that it will affect your lips. So if you touch it, do not touch your face, because probably your lips will swell up. It is believed that this is probably a protectant for it from other species that try to have it for dinner. But it was a real thrill. I have 2 more pictures to show you. There's its name. This shows you the lumpiness much better. But you see that pattern on the back does show. I just think tree frogs are very neat. Another picture from the front. I did not take this picture, as you might imagine. I couldn't get it. But you are so cute. Okay. Whoops. This is a honeybee drinking water. I am a keeper of honeybees. To be very honest with you, I did not think ever really about giving insects that frequent our property a source of water until I became a beekeeper. When I became a beekeeper and I did lots of reading, I learned they need water. And the reason honeybees need water is that they actually swallow it, take it in their gullet, take it back to the hive in the summertime, regurgitate it, and use it for cooling purposes. However, since that time, I've learned many insects enjoy having a source of water in the summertime. And this is a good picture because it shows you that it needs a place for it to stand and not fall in because they don't want to drown. This also shows you the proboscis, and it shows you sucking up the water. Unfortunately, sometimes, pardon me, I'm going to shut this off. Sometimes when bees are drinking, they get too close and they fall in the water and drown. I love this picture. I have a fountain in my yard, and they found a way of getting on that fountain and drinking. If you wish to encourage insects that come to your garden to drink water, you don't have to have a fountain. You could have a bird bath that you put a little water in, put in some stones for them to stand on so they don't drown, and they will be able to pick up water. Be sure to keep it clean. The only issue with doing this for insects that use water is that sometimes they prefer things other than what you offer them. A very nice neighbor told me that my bees have been visiting his swimming pool cover when the water collects, and sometimes bees and other insects will prefer those things instead of what you offer them. So you have to work out things with neighbors if you do live in a neighborhood. Pardon me, I don't know why this jumps, but you know how computers are. I want you to see this one as well. Okay, they don't want to get their feet wet, and that's an important thing for you to keep in mind. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I want to do. They like warmer water, and they carry it back with them. So just as we need to keep cool in the summertime, insects do as well. I love this. This is a hummingbird moth. The son-in-law of ours took a picture of the hummingbird moth when it came to visit my bee balm. This is what we call a clearwing moth. Okay, it's about an inch and a half long. A number of years ago, I ran a youth program. I shall never forget this. The children came to me one afternoon and they said, Mrs. Harlow, we caught a hummingbird. I said, bring it to me. And of course, it was a hummingbird moth. Hummingbirds, as small as they are still about twice as big as a hummingbird moth. They are usually sort of olive green and burgundy. And look at their legs. Their legs are very light colored. You can see that in the front. That is a diagnostic characteristic for them. The caterpillars will live on dogbane and honeysuckle and hawthorn. They're great pollinators. Take a look at that tongue. They take it and they roll it up, and when they get close to the plant, they unfurl it. They actually roll this up. It's a type of beak. Their body is what most of us would call furry. Look at the wings. It's a moth. What happened to the scales? When pupation occurs and when it emerges, it does have scales, but the scales fall off of it, okay? If you look very carefully at the back end of this one, you can see a little white thing. You see where it's furry in the back? You see a little white thing sticking out? That's a little, what they call it, a horn, little white horn on the posterior, okay? The female lays an egg, and she lays it on the underside of plants. And this little structure helps in that process. Let's take another look. Again, bee balm is their favorite, although they will visit many, many things. I'd like to go back. This is one showing it to you when it first emerges. Very beautiful, but that coloration doesn't last because those scales fall off. So it's kind of a treat to be able to get that picture. Look at the tongue. I have several different types of bee balm in the gardens and just could just stand there and watch them coming. Bee balm is one of the best plants you can put in your garden for pollinators. I'm just giving you a moment to enjoy that. Oh, I must tell you about this. This is a wasp, right? You perhaps recognize that because it's a narrow-waisted wasp. A number of years ago, another master gardener and I were answering the phone for Master Gardener Hotline, and the woman said, I want to bring something to you. She came into the office with a box, and in that box was very dry grass, what I thought was a cricket, which looked very pale. And she said that she found it inside her window, between the sash and the outside. And we said to her, we don't know what to say. We have no idea what this is. A couple months passed. That particular year was the first year of my life that I raised mason bees. And I had put the tubes for the mason bees on my back fence. And I got to miss their immersion. But I was out working in my garden one day, and I suddenly noticed that were these wasps that were carrying little bits of grass and tucking them into the tubes that I had hung for my mason bees. And I stood there for a long time just watching them. Did not know what they were, but I did know they were a wasp, and I knew they were carrying pieces of dried grass. So I came in the house, didn't quite know how I was going to figure out what they were, and I Googled wasp that carries grass and found out there is a wasp. Actually, it's a group of them, a solitary wasp. In other words, they live alone. There are what we call grass-carrying wasps. So I'm going to show you pictures. There's a wasp carrying. There is all this grass stuck up into a hole. And there, if you look on the bottom, is actually a dead katydid. So what is going on here? Okay, this particular wasp truly is called the grass-carrying wasp. Its genus name is Isodontia, okay, or the thread-waisted wasp. You probably noticed it had a very thin waist. If you see a wasp with a very thin waist, that means it is a solitary wasp. All solitary wasps don't have a thin waist, but all thin-waisted wasps are solitary. They don't live in groups. The adults emerge in early summer, and the larvae are fed members of the odonata. In other words, things like grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids. And what the wasp does is the wasp collects grass, puts it wherever it's going to have its young raised. It stings whatever member of the odonata it's going to use, a katydid and so forth, lays its eggs, and it leaves. And this is what the woman had in her windowsill. The people have also found, I've learned since then, that they will do it up in any open space. Like if you have perhaps a veranda and you have a space there and they find it, they will do it there as well. It's really an incredible process. Do not interfere with these wasps. They can sting you repeatedly. They have quite a sting. Their stinger is smooth, and because it is smooth, once it comes back out of whatever it is stinging, it can go back in and give it another shot of venom. So it's an absolutely fascinating thing. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one. I think I gotta go back and show you the pictures again. Look at that. That's what I saw when I was in my garden. That is not a picture from my garden, however. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Okay, bugs on milkweed. So in my garden, I am growing milkweed because I've been raising monarch butterflies. And people come and they notice things. So we're going to talk about this. Bugs on milkweed, I said which one, and I didn't say any more because here is an example. Now, to the right, we have the nymphal stages, and to the left, we have what is called the milkweed bug. Bug, yes. Okay, this is a true bug, which means that if you look behind the very small head, you will see a very small area, right? And the mouth parts are underneath. So again, you are talking about an insect with piercing and sucking mouth parts. There are 3 insects which look so much alike and are very similar in size that I've had discussions with various people in this regard. So I thought I would share that with you. That is just telling you the genus and species. Here we go. The one that I just showed you is called the large milkweed bug. And if you look at the picture to the left, you see the black band that goes across? That's an identifier. The one in the middle, the one that is called the small milkweed bug, looks bigger in this picture, and it's ever so much smaller. Take a look. Look only at the red, and look only at the red that goes toward the back. Do you see how it forms an X? That's how you know it's the small. Okay, that's the small. And then lastly, we have the box elder bug. And the box elder bug doesn't have either of those. So that helps you identify, because people see orange and black, they get them all confused, okay? So I always tell people, how do you keep from getting these mixed up? Well, large would be probably fat around the middle, so it has a black band around the middle. The small one has the red triangle, and the box elder has a lot of black. It also has a little area that is black also. All 3 of these are what we call true bugs, okay? Anything else I wanted to tell you? No, I did not. Ah, yes. There's nothing more beautiful, I think, than seeing a bumblebee on lavender. I grow lavender around in my rose garden. And I've noticed that if you sit and watch, you will see the lavender will actually bend over from the weight of bumblebees. One of the interesting things that I have found is that sometimes bumblebees do not go back to their underground dwelling in the evening, especially males. They will overnight in a flower Go out early in the morning and look at flowers on your property, whether they be so-called wildflowers or weeds or things that you very definitely planted in a garden. And you will find very quietly bumblebees open up that flower. And it's almost as though they wake up. I think they're warming up in the early morning. And all of a sudden, they will literally shake themselves, probably raising their body temperature, because don't forget, their temperatures do change with changes in the temperature outside, and they will take off. Lavender is one of the very favorite plants of bumblebees, not honeybees, because of the nature of the flowers and the fact that bumblebees have a long tongue, and they are able to take that tongue and get it into the flower much, much more easily. It's more common, as I said earlier, to find the males asleep in the lavender in the morning. The females go back underground. I think it's good for people to know that bumblebees do produce honey, but they do not produce honey in the quantity that honeybees do. They produce enough to take care of the bumblebees in their own hive. Their own so-called hive will range from about 50 to 100 bees. At the end of the season, and when males are produced, mating occurs, the original queen dies, the impregnated queens go off and find a place to overwinter. One of the best reasons not to rake all of your leaves is because bumblebees like to overwinter in leaf litter. So I tell people this all the time: clean property. It makes me very sad. Let them overwinter and let the cycle begin again. They only use the honey for the creatures, for the larvae in the hive that is underneath the ground. Everybody dies at the end of the season except the impregnated females. You may notice in the springtime that that the bumblebees that you see are small. They tend to get larger as the season goes on because there's more of them feeding the group that's in their little mini hives. That is a really pretty picture, isn't it? Okay, so let us take a look at this. If this bug was as big as it looks on the screen, I think we would all leave because it looks like something out of a horror movie. This is one of the many members of the so-called assassin bugs. And I want you just to take a moment and look at this. Do you notice how messy it is? It's got debris all over it. Do you know what this creature does? It covers itself with debris. Other insects think it's something dead. And when they go over to clean up the debris to use it, the assassin bug will puncture it. And when it punctures it will kill it because it will secrete a toxin into it, and then we'll use it for food and also for laying eggs. There's many species of assassin bugs. This is one of the more common ones. But just looking at it should send shudders down your spine. It has relatively large eggs and very long antennae in proportion to its body. What do they feed on? Anything they can get. They eat bees, they eat wasps, they eat caterpillars, okay? I always tell people they stab them and then they suck them, and then people watch horror movies. It's going on right in your yard. If you see one of these, they're about, depending on the species, they're about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch long. And don't take them lightly because they actually can pierce your skin. And some people do react to that, because they don't know you're a big thing, So they will inject their venom into you as well. And some people swell. I do not know of anything I could find in literature about there being an allergic reaction. They come in lots of colors. It's really their body form, which is more of an identifier. Now you see it has wings, but they're not very good flyers. They don't fly very well at all. They're much better at just hiding in wait for something to attack. There is one called a wheel bug. I know about it. I haven't been able to find any here, but I'm sure they are here. And the wheel bug has like this huge structure that goes behind its head, sort of like the pictures you used to see of Queen Elizabeth I with the big collar. Well, that's what they have around their head. They're supposed to be the most common, but I very rarely see them on our property. They like to imitate other insects. If they find something that's dead, another thing they do is sometimes they'll pull the body right over on top of themselves. And when something else comes over to investigate, they get it then as well. So they're really something else. Some people call them ambush bugs because of the way they live. I am sure that many of you have had experience with bald-faced hornets' nests. Bald-faced hornets are not hornets. There are no true hornets that are native to North America. The only true hornet that are here is the European hornet, which has been here for quite a while. And of course, what do they call the new one now? I'm trying to think what it's called. The Japanese hornet that everybody's worried about that has been found in Washington State. What people call the bald-faced hornet, and I love this picture. Look at that. I would like this one better, though. It's called a bald-faced hornet because of the white. And the white on it, people thought made it look skeletal. It's actually very closely related to yellow jackets, and the venom is quite similar to them. In other words, they are what we call a vespid. They're not a true hornet at all. Okay, they're black and white. The males of this species are haploid. That means that they have half of the genetics. Females develop from fertilized eggs, males develop from unfertilized eggs. They are another species that is omnivorous. In other words, they'll eat almost anything, caterpillars, flies, whatever they can. One of the nasty things they can do, though, which makes me really respect them in a way, is they can squirt venom into the eyes of their prey. And so if you happen, and this happened to me, to go under a tree that has a nest, they will go for you. I've always prided myself on being one of these people who goes about things methodically, is not fearful, until the day we had a large bald-faced hornet nest in a crabapple tree. We had been away. I didn't know it was there. I walked under it, immediately went for me. I am going to be dignified. I am going to walk through this yard, and they're not going to keep this up. Well, that didn't work out because they were all over me, so I ended up taking a run for it. So I do have a respect for them. Their life cycle is kind of interesting. One female starts a new nest in the spring, and she overwintered in the autumn of the year, okay? And she builds a few cells. The nests, we call them paper wasp, they're really wood. It's really chewed wood, which is made into the nest. She begins the nest, but she does not entirely make it. She begins, she lays eggs, she feeds the larvae. Those wasps help to build the nest into the large size that you see later. Then in August, you have new queens, which I created for next year. The new queens are not sterile because they mate with males that are produced at that time of the year. Now, some people say to me, well, why isn't this a hornet? I mean, what's the difference, okay? Wasps have a relatively slender body, for one thing, and hornets have a sort of roundish yellowish body, okay? Wasps always have, a true wasp always has a waist. It may not be a thin waist, but they do have some type of a waist that you can identify. True wasps are about a quarter to about 1 inch long, whereas hornets got this big round yellow body. They can be up to 2 inches long. Now, the toxin of hornets is a neurotoxin, but the toxins from wasps is a real cocktail mix. There's a whole slew. There's serotonins in there. There's dopamine in there. It depends. So the feeling is that they developed at a different time, different place, and therefore they are not related. An interesting thing is when they die in the autumn of the year, when everybody dies off, sometimes people decide they want to collect them. Be very careful doing this. There used to be a noted naturalist in Western New York named Dave Bigelow, who used to love to tell the story of how he collected this to bring it to his classes at the Science Museum. And he put it in his car. It was quiet. Nothing happened. He turned on the heater and he found out that there were several in there that overwintered. He opened all the windows of his car, and when that didn't work, he threw it out the window. I was going at one time to take a bald-faced hornet's nest to school to show my students. So I left it hang in the garden. I knew that after a while, everything would die. However, I never got to do it because the blue jays discovered it, and the blue jays tore it all apart and ate the wasps, which were still present in the nest. Okay, so my dears, these are my, I hope you enjoyed this, and your questions and your comments are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
Do we have questions?
Let's see, I think we do have some.
We say 13. Do I click down here on chat?
Yeah, I can look through the chat for you if you'd like.
Thank you.
We have Steve Kinney asks, where do you find those blue shield bugs?
I found the blue shield bugs on a bush in my garden. I found them, let's see, they were on my elderberries. And where else were they? There was something else in my garden, but it was mostly on my elderberries, and I had never seen them before. That was brand new to me. I never even heard of them. It took me quite a while to identify them.
They're very beautiful. So when you showed the slide with the box elder bug and the milkweed bug, we couldn't see the box elder bug because it was off the screen, like halfway cut off on the right. Is there a way you could you share your screen and not go to PowerPoint presenter mode? Maybe just share it in that slide and see if we can see it.
Yeah, we can try.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here. I don't know why I took these. Okay, that's the revisit. See what we can find here. We have to go much further down, I'm sure.
It's a great tree frog picture. What I like about tree frogs. They're so hard. You can be so close to them and still not be able to see them.
I
And,
know.
and the first time that I actually found one and I went to touch it, you know, it looks like it's going to be dry like bark, but it's
No, but
not.
it's
It's actually
not.
very moist, and it's this weird
Yes.
disconnect between what you're seeing and what you're feeling.
Let's see here. Here we're close. Let's see if we can find it. Okay. All right, now see the band. Okay, so that's the large milkweed bug. We're very close. Okay. Let's see where this shows this time. There we go. Here's
There it
this one.
is.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is. You know what? What if I can enlarge it right here on the screen? Let's see if we can do that. Oh, no. No, I can't. It won't allow me to do that. But you can see the characteristics are different. Mouth parts, however, are underneath, but you see that even the body shape is a little bit different. This is slightly bigger on average, but not always. Not always. These are the ones that the box elder bugs are the ones that get in people's houses sometimes in the autumn of the year, especially if you have maple trees, not just the box elder itself, but other acre, you know, species that will get in your house in the autumn of the year. But you can see, you don't see that, you don't see the band that you see in the large. You don't see the, when I talk about the X, I'm talking about the red X that's formed in the back here. You see that?
Yes.
And you don't see that at all here. Very often people get these three mixed up. Does that answer the person's question, whoever you are?
I think so. They just couldn't see it. So.
Yeah, it's quite all right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. All right. Shall I go? Stop.
Sure.
Stop.
Yeah, you can get out. Then Dave Shepard asks, are the tree frogs known to change color to match their surroundings?
Yes. Yes, they are. And I found one in my flower bed, and it was brown about 3 days after the one I took the picture of. And it was amazing. It was matching. After all, it couldn't be blue. It doesn't do blue. And it was on, as I said, I saw it on the side of my house and didn't realize what it was. I thought it was the leaf that got caught up there because it was the bright green that caught my eye. Okay. Nice. Okay, let's go back to chat. I think I should close out of this. Shall I?
Sure. Yeah, okay. Sure. Then Adrian just commented that downy woodpeckers consider hornet and wasp nests a gourmet meal as well.
Oh, yes, I know they do. I know they do. Yes, absolutely. Here we go. Back to chat. Whoops. Aren't our backyards the best? That's cute. Adrian. I can read these now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
To anyone, let me go up to the top. Oh, Charlotte died after she put up. That's yes. Don't get me going about that. And I answered where I saw the shield bugs. Yes, when my middle daughter was 10 years old, we saw the movie Charlotte's Web. And there I was sitting there crying over a spider. I remember that. That bee is gorgeous, isn't it? Thank you. Save the dates, June 4th and 5th. For what volunteer weekend?
That was for me. That's for everybody.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Thank
so
you.
I was
going to ask you if you're going to have any weekends again this year. Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't think we have any more questions, but we had a lot of wonderful comments, and I'll send you the chat information.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Carol Ann. Your presentations are always wonderful, and your photos
you are very gracious. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm very impressed with how many very good photographers we have in the group. I guess I wish I could take pictures like you all do, and I'm very grateful to be able to see them.
That's because, my dear, we only show you the good ones.
Okay.
Delete is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I see Steve, I see you, and I see you smiling. You know what I'm talking about. About 90% of them is delete. How in the world did I do that? Delete, 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 delete. Oh, I got a good. That's why. Anyone else? Well, thank you so very much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again for another nice presentation. And thanks to everybody who joined tonight. We had a great group.
Thank you. Good night.
We'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Thanks,
Okay,
Caroline.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.